25 years or something, so she knows more than just about anybody there. So if you're having problems with anything at all, call our office. You might get me, but Elaine probably knows way more than I do too, so she's our assistant. The one thing I always want to stress is you have a GCC email address. Check it and use it. Sometimes I found adjuncts don't even know they have a GCC email. So that's when we send all of our notifications. If things change, we send them by email. And if there's deadlines coming up, we send emails to you. We also send emails to students, but we don't always read things like they should. So then we ask you to remind them that, oh, last day to register, or last day to drop an ad, that kind of thing. Always check your GCC email. That's our great mode of communication. So, do you know what your emails are? All of you got them with us. But I'm going to go through some things that you may know and you may not know, but just a little clarification on a few things. First of all, your class lists. That will be on your ICS at the beginning of the semester. Now, what tends to happen, even with our full-time on-campus faculty, they'll look at it on Monday when school starts, and then they don't look at it again. Lots of things happen in that first couple weeks of school. You should check your class lists almost every day. If there's a drop, if there's an ad, that way you'll know about it. So especially during that first 2 weeks, check it often. Let's see. Well, you'll get at the end of the semester, or actually during the semester, you will get an official one, a hard copy of it in the mail. Please sign it and send it back to us. Believe it or not, we keep all of those in a file, and they're bound and everything, and that's what our auditors use. So they may come in a year and a half from now and say, I want to know about that CJC class. They'll open up the class list and it has to be accurate. So we need your verification signature that it's an accurate class list. So that's why we send those things out, and sometimes people just don't realize the importance of getting those back, strictly for auditing purposes, but that's a really important purpose. Another thing that's critical for us, when it gets to be the end of the first week and someone on your roster has not attended, contact us. If it gets to be the end of the second week, please, please, please contact us. Those things have a great impact. We will call the students and say, are you coming or not? If they're not coming, we have to get them off there. Otherwise, they're going to be on your official roster, and unfortunately, they'll probably end up with an F grade because they won't be showing up. So if we can intervene with that in your first week, with you it'd be better on the second week because your classes, a lot of them are one time a week. So by your second class meeting, if someone hasn't shown up those 2 weeks, call us. We really need that information. And sometimes there's financial aid implications and all kinds of other things. So it's just important that you do that. Okay, one of the things that we do, and several of you used it, is our early student update system. We do that for many reasons. The main one is helping our students be successful, but it's also retention. So after about the 5th week of school, you will receive a notice from Laura, and it will say that if there are any student issues or anything with a student, like poor attendance, they're just not getting it, they're not turning in your work, fill out the form and send it in to me. And I physically call them and make appointments. There's a couple of us on campus that do that, and we just implemented this past year, and it really, really worked. We find out things that may be going on in their life so that they can't attend or something, and then we say, if you haven't been there for so many weeks, you should drop. But we really intervene, and in a lot of cases, it's just simply, okay, they're talking to the dean, go to class, or you're not going to pass. I do the mother thing on a lot of our students, even if they're adults. That's what we do, and it's nice we can do that because we're so small, and I think that's a really good advantage for us with our students. But sometimes just weird things come up, and so we can take care of it then instead of the whole semester going by and then there's trouble. So watch for that.
Was that a new thing with it? Because I only got it once and I taught 4 classes.
Yeah, I think we just got, I think we just did it this semester.
Because I didn't get one in the summer at all either, so.
Yeah, you know, summer is
Summer's so
different.
short, okay,
We
yeah.
didn't do it
I
in
figured.
summer, but we probably should.
I just wanted to check that I wasn't missing.
No, we probably should in summer, but we probably do it after about the second week, not the fifth week.
And I found this is very, very helpful to us because I had students, and she has legal issues at home and she was emotional, had several meltdowns in the class, and I kind of worry, I don't know this
Sure.
kind of issue to talk to who, and then I got this form. I feel, you know, I have a backup always. I can, you know,
Yeah,
rely on the main campus or the advisor. At least I will report this problem, and later on, if you know there is a problem, somebody can handle that. So.
and if it's someone in that situation, I might refer them to our counselor. And we can do it on phone, but if it's a serious one, we can come up here too and speak with students. I mean, we're all on one campus, so we try to do whatever we can to help our students be successful. Okay, the next slide, which is the drop and add part. These are dates that you need to have ingrained in your mind, but it's really the student's responsibility. The last day to add a class is always the Friday of the first week of school. Now, after saying that, in your situation, being off campus, in a lot of cases you've only had one class. So say your class is on Thursday night and it's Monday or Tuesday afterwards and they call us and say, I want to get in that Thursday night class, we may allow it. You know, on campus, most classes would have met 3 times, at least 3 times by the end of the first week. So we're a little bit lenient on off campus, but not totally. And a lot of our classes fill, so if they still want to add and it's full, they can't. So we like to try to stick to the Friday, but we will be lenient with our off-campus students. The last day to drop is the important one. That's the Friday of the second week of school. This year it's September 7th, and that is for a full refund. I think it's amazing that we do that, 2 weeks into the class, give a full refund, but that's what we do, and that's good for our students. But after that, they can still drop, but they don't get their money back. So even if it's the Monday after, we're pretty strict with these. And then there's that W grade, withdraw. Our last day to withdraw this year is November 21st. So if it gets to be the beginning of November and we've gone through the early student update process and everything else and students are still struggling and they come to you and say, what should I do? If you're figuring out their average and they're just not going to make it, tell them they need to withdraw. It's better to withdraw than get a W, than to get an F. However, withdrawals for financial aid purposes do have an impact. So make sure they talk to the financial aid office before they withdraw. But I still think it's better to get a W than an F because your grade point can be seriously damaged by receiving an F. I'm going through this kind of fast.
Where would the line be for you on that one? Just failing, or what about like in the Ds?
Well, you know, it's up to the student. If it's something in their major, they need better comprehension than a D. If it's a gen ed, sometimes, what do you teach?
I teach biology.
Biology. Yeah, depends what they're in, but
Well, most of my students are going to nursing, but yeah.
then they definitely
definitely
better
want.
than a D.
But I was thinking which one's better. I went to Michigan Tech, and I don't know how it really works here. So if we got a lower grade than a D, we could retake it for, I don't remember what it was, but it was like, I never had the option to do that because I always had higher grade.
We started, yeah, but if you had anything, I think, higher than a C, then you would have to keep your grade.
Yeah. So basically you could
I would just
swipe out
see.
that grade, the D, and
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
They can do that.
so as long as it's not.
In our system, it still appears on your transcript that you got a D, but there'll be an asterisk, and then the new class will show up with the grade, and that, the one with the grade, higher grade is what's counted in your GPA.
I'm just wondering for, I guess, the reason of if a student's already got a D and, and they are going to get a D.
Yeah,
I personally, if I knew I was going to be, I'd rather finish up the class and learn
Right.
as much information I can the first
I
time
would too.
around and then come back and have a much better start.
On that same thing, I had a student that got a D and then retook it, and then like some health issues or something came up, she stopped coming to class and failed the second time. So how does that affect them?
Oh, what a shame.
I know, 'cause
Yeah,
I'm like,
that is a shame.
so her second score was worse because she was doing fine until these health issues came up.
It would take time as well,
Okay.
but,
Yeah, 'cause before
Yeah.
then, she was getting a B. It just went up. So I was like, oh, I hope that the score isn't changed to failing now, you know?
yeah, no.
Okay.
Just Karen needs to, she hands up there.
Okay.
Okay, what else is on here? Okay, so we're on incomplete grades. This is one that's easy to confuse. We have gotten to the point where I think we're giving way too many incomplete grades. An incomplete is supposed to be, and I'm not saying you guys are just saying overall on campus. An incomplete is supposed to be an exception. You know, something major happened to the student. They couldn't come to class for several weeks because of a death in the family or a serious illness or something like that, or, you know, major circumstances. Then they need to talk to you beforehand, and you can grant them an incomplete if you think it's valid, a valid reason, but you don't have to give incompletes. Now, if a student just didn't come to class for 3 weeks or just didn't turn in assignments, that's really not a valid reason. I mean, they're in class that time period, and it shouldn't extend way into the summer or you know, way into the Christmas break. But those are your calls. If you ever have a question, call me about that. But we, you know, and I've seen just way too many faculty members do that. Oh, you know, they didn't come to class for 3 weeks, didn't turn in 2 tests, so I'll give them an extra one. Well, you know, we're also training people for the workforce, and if you, you don't get to do over when you're in the workforce. You screw it up, that, you know, you gotta take responsibility for that. And not that I'm eager to fail people, but responsibility is a big thing we're teaching them as well. And when you do grant an incomplete, our policy states that it's a 30-day grace period to finish the incomplete. And why don't I do this while I'm talking? I have a series of forms here that I brought so you could refer to them. So just to go incomplete one.
So for incompletes, they would have to miss a couple of weeks of school and then come back and try to work for what they missed. Is that how it works?
Well, only grant an incomplete if they missed for a really valid reason. Okay, the fourth one down. Not just that, well, you know, I went to Florida and stayed a couple of weeks or whatever, and I wasn't even spring break, that kind of thing. That's, if they talk to you about things earlier, fine. But they come back 3 weeks later and say, oh, now you have to make me up with all my work. Not your responsibility, you know. And I know how students are, because if they don't get the right answer, they always call me. And I say the same thing, you know, well, where have you been? So anyway, this is the incomplete form. So if you do grant someone an incomplete, this form has to be sent to our office so that we know in grading that they're going to get an I, and this way we follow up on it too. And on the bottom part it says the incomplete must be made up by this date, so 30 days or whatever. You can give them 2 weeks if you want. Or the incomplete will revert to whatever grade you have circled on here. So after that 30 days, we would expect you to contact us with the rest of the grade if they finished it or didn't finish it. And then we'll change the grade if they did complete the incomplete. Sure. So any questions about the incomplete? Okay.
This one will be like that for now. Is
Okay.
that working for people right now?
Oh, yeah.
All right, awesome.
Okay, the next one is the fun topic that I'm sure you have dealt with before, but it's FERPA, Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act of 1974. Now, this gives students a number of rights, but it also helps us be careful in what we're giving out. And as it says on the PowerPoint, they can come in and inspect their records. The one thing we see a lot on campus, you have a lot of non-traditional students, but parents will call and say, I pay the bills, you give me their grades. And unless the student tells us, we cannot disclose their grades. So some students may be like, I'm not telling my parents what's going on here, and they won't disclose to their parents. And so then we can't. And the other one on there too, amendments to incorrect records. Now, other than those exceptions, a student has to sign that release. And they can sign the release over to a guardian, they could, over to their husband or wife, whatever. So that's up to them if they choose to give that out. But you can't give a grade to anybody, and we can't either if they call our office. And then, now, the things that affect you is like posting grades. In the old days, they used to put a roster on the door of people's offices and put their names and their sometimes social security numbers back in my ancient days, and the grades on there. We can't do that at all. You cannot post grades by name. You can't do them by their student ID number, like that 110789. Can't use those numbers and post them in a public place. And you certainly can't use social security numbers pretty much for anything. Not even the last 4 digits, because once I have faculty will put 2019 or whatever the last 2 digits are. Can't do that. It's a student right to not have that posted anywhere. Some other things though, these are simple things to be compliant. And I know you don't actually have offices, but if you're in here working for some reason, you're on a computer, before you get up from that computer, even just to run to the restroom, lock your computer so that no one can go in there. Say you're doing your grades here or something, and I know a lot of you don't, but be really careful. But even if you're at home and someone else can walk in and see your computer, make sure you lock your computer, because that is very, very important. The other thing is, say I have an incomplete form on my desk, it has the social security number, everything else, and I'm really good for this, which is not a good thing. I'll leave it on my desk, and then anyone who walks in my office can see exactly what's on there. Just flip them over, that's all. You can still have the papers on your desk, but just flip them over so no one can just walk in and see them, and that's okay. The other thing is, shred any documentation that a student may have given you, anything that you may have, or else just put it in a really secure location that no one else can handle. And the other thing is that spelling on there, it's not FERBA, it's FERBA, statement into your signature line. And you'll see that on the emails from Ken. I think you have it on, I know I have it on my emails. Most of them will have it, just really small print. It doesn't have to be a big major thing, but put that FERBA signature on your emails. And if you don't have it, we can send it to you.
If you have an email from me too, it's at the bottom of there. You're using your Vogue Back email.
I have a question on that with the grades. I don't like to let my students keep my tests in case I want to reuse questions in the future.
That's fine.
How long do I have to hang on to their tests? And once I'm done with them, I burn them because I burn my garbage, but most of them.
Well,
Like exams?
Yes, like a final exam or a midterm or,
Like the graded ones?
Yes.
Oh, I have what my rule is, but.
no, what's your?
I usually kept things for 1 year,
Yeah,
personally.
that's what I was going to say.
You know, because students might appeal a grade, or, usually appeal will come the next semester. And usually, if it's not resolved, it'll be resolved within 1 year. I've never had that issue though, so.
But we have run into that, so it's good to save them a year. But I will tell you that I am cracking down on grade appeals too. I can't take a grade appeal in January for something that happened last April, May. So I'm trying to do a 30 to 60 day, haven't been determined yet, but that's as long as they can appeal their grade, and that's it. Because it's way too much to expect you to remember every little detail of a student that you had 3 semesters ago.
The other option, I'm sorry, is to, we talked quickly about it up front, where you have, those students that really require any attention. If you identify students in your class, and I've done this before, that you feel may argue their grade, you can just save theirs, because you know, I mean, you'll get to know your class pretty well.
I mean, your A students, you can pretty much just
Right.
push grades away, because
Right,
you know they're not
so-
gonna appeal.
Exactly.
Just an idea, so you don't have, you know,
And I
piles of
do
stuff.
actually have stacks of stacks.
Are you allowed to use spelling anymore, or do you have to use something special?
Let's shred them. I would shred
Yeah,
them.
or burn.
And you can shred
Rid of
them.
her house.
Do we have a shredder here, Stacy? We can shred them.
Yes, we have shredders.
Or burn them, yeah.
Or actually my fire starters. So I don't use them a lot of paper at home, so.
If you don't have a shredder, pack them up and mail them to us and we'll shred them. Or do you have a shredder?
We do.
Then just bring them here and she'll shred them. And I know you don't have student workers, the next slide is student workers, and, if by chance you have someone doing something for you, I'll just pretend that you do. But they need to make sure that they maintain confidentiality too. So we do require things like that of our work study, just so you know, because we do have work study here.
Throw a hypothetical at you, please?
Yes.
Okay. Let's say you have a student that shows great aptitude, and you say, I'm giving a presentation in a couple weeks. I want someone with different eyes to look at it, and I will give you nothing for it. I say that you just do it out of goodness of your heart and as an academic exercise. So there's no give and take, but they gain from it. I say what's in it for them. Now, am I obliged to have them sign an agreement of sort, just to look
No,
over?
not if it's non-confidential information.
Okay.
If they're, like, sometimes faculty members will have students run a test, you know, we do the copying for them, or in some cases, if it's the Scantrons, which we don't use that much anymore, but you know, grade things or run them, things like that, then you just need to be careful. And on campus, we have work study working in my office, we have work study in the admissions office where there's access to all the student records. So in those cases, it's really important that we are, you know, pretty consistent with that. The next thing is grades on here, and you received the notices for the grades, and we're going to do a little training.
Yeah, you have,
On here?
this is the stuff from Miranda, the
Yeah,
technical part,
we'll
so do
do
you
that.
wanna walk through
We'll
some?
do that next.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so.
The grades are always due on the last day of the semester.
Is there any way, like, this happens every single semester, and I always send an email, because I teach Thursday night till 10 o'clock, and there's no way, because I have a day job, to get the grades in by Friday. This happens every
Yeah.
semester.
I will tell this rule,
Yes.
but this is not for everybody, and especially not for the people on campus, that if you get them in by Monday morning, or like
Even
over
tech
the
gives you
weekend.
till Tuesday.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just impossible.
Well, once we implemented the final exam week, then you know, kind of expected faculty to work, and this is more on campus really, the rule was made for on campus, but unfortunately you're stuck with it as well, because they only give their tests, so if you're a regular faculty member, you're pretty much working all day anyway, but you could be grading. Now, with you know, we certainly, for sure, Monday morning, you could have the weekend, but one of the main reasons for that is the way our system is, if somebody does not turn in their grades, we can't run any grades. So occasionally we'll have a rebel faculty member that we can't get a hold of, or keep saying, okay, I'll get them in by Tuesday, I'll get them in by Wednesday, I'll get them in by Thursday. You are holding up the absolute entire institution from getting their grades. It's just the way our computer system runs. And people don't understand that, but it is a really big deal. Because then we have literally probably 1,000 calls from students, where's my grades, where's my grades? And our office, and that's all we do then, is answer the phone. So, you know, if you need a little more time, please let us know, but we prefer to have them in by Monday morning. So that will give you the whole weekend anyway. We don't start processing anything.
My Saturday classes I've run into the same, situation, which that last class really should be theirs to do the exam, or, and I've like, okay, I have to have your stuff by, Wednesday or Thursday in order to get, grades done. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, that's great. That's not a problem. And let's just see how it works. We're nothing but flexible around here, so. Okay, and once again, Elaine's the contact person on grades, and her extension and everything is on there, and she can walk you through anything, answer any questions or whatever. Occasionally, we get from on-campus faculty, they'll turn in their grades and they'll leave someone blank. And then they inform us that, well, that person hasn't been to class all semester, so I'm not grading them. Well, we should have known about that back in the second week of school. But you can't turn in your grades and leave anything blank, otherwise we're going to be calling you, and then once again, they were held up for however long time. And that's also the point. By then, you should have your incompletes and your forms done and in. Now, if you guys mail out an incomplete form on Monday, we'll have it Tuesday, that's fine. But put the incomplete grade in when you're grading people. Just don't leave anything blank. If there's something on there that's screwy, call us first. So when we get the grades back, we're not going, what? You know? So that's just communicate. That's all. Just communicate with us. The next part is disability services. Now, disability services at the college level is different than the high school level. We cannot legally run after students and say you need disability services. They have to provide us with official documentation, and it usually has to be a diagnosis from a medical doctor or something that they have been evaluated. Someone just can't come to you and say, I'm dyslexic, you have to give me accommodations. You know, legally we're not obligated to do that. So if you notice someone early on in your class, first week, second week, or if someone contacts you, they need to contact Dale Jackson, and her extension is on here. She is our disability services coordinator. So if there's anything like they need books on tape or they need extra time or whatever, she will determine what legally we are obligated to give students, and we'll let you know. But once again, they do have to request it. We can't just go to them, and they do have to provide legal official documentation. Yes.
That's what I was just gonna ask, because I've had a couple of students that have mental disabilities, it seems like, they won't ask for help. And what do you do in a circumstance?
Well, in those circumstances, you can talk with them and ask them if they need tutoring, or suggest to them that tutoring might be a good option for them. And if they need other accommodations, to call Dale, and then Dale will be your middleman. She you know, you don't have to say, well, we can't, or we won't do this or won't do that. Refer them to Dale for the things that you think that they might need. And if you see someone and they just won't self-identify at all, you can contact Dale, or email her or call her and ask her what to do, and in many cases she'll contact her.
And just for FYI on the extensions, if you're dialing, like say from your cell phone, just put a 1 in front of the extension, and it's 307. So 906 307 1271. You know, because you might not always be here where I know you can dial directly to Dale. Just to FYI. But in that case, I think you put it right. I would, if you never come out, and, well, I think you need some help, but with tutoring, or sort of, you're not being wishy-washy, but you're not, and then see how they respond to that. But I know that's a sensitive one.
It is very sensitive.
That's always tough.
But we have many cases, on campus and off campus, way more than you would think. And so we do a lot of incredible work with students with disabilities, but you don't have to worry about that part. We'll handle that. Dale will set everything up for you. Tutoring. We have tutoring both on campus and off. And what week will you probably have yours up and running?
Probably the second week, it should be
Okay.
good to go.
Okay, now we don't have tutors for every single subject area, but if you have a lot of students, say in biology, and we don't have a biology tutor, talk with Stacy and we can do what we can with that. It's usually math and English.
Math, science, English is what we try to get, one of each, but then when I was talking to Dale about this, she said it's nice to have ones who can do 2 different subjects too. So we're trying to look for students right now who are strong in math, and oftentimes they're strong in chemistry and biology too. So, and we have 3 new work studies coming this year, so hopefully they'll be able to help with those tutoring too.
I've had some students that have requested to meet with me, like, for extra time. Now, my understanding is that I can't do that because I haven't done that for other people. You know, is that correct? That I can't, like, meet with somebody for 2 extra hours
No.
or something, or?
That's your prerogative.
Okay.
And there are a number of faculty, there are some faculty that go to the extreme on that. They will have, with their office hours, they will extend them, they will meet with students, they'll say, the 3 of you are seeming to have, you know, an extra problem with this concept. I'll be in my office at 4 o'clock and they may be there for 2 hours. And
Okay.
it's all up to you. I mean, some faculty will do that, some
Yeah.
say, you know, these are my office hours, if, you know, I've got time, come on in or make an appointment. But I think that's a great thing if you're doing that, so thank you for making that up.
Yeah, it is great. So any questions about tutoring, call Stacy, and she'll help you with that.
Or even if you have anybody in your class who excels too.
Yeah.
Like last year what we did is, I mean, some of them say, well, I'll tutor on the side, you know, for $8 an hour or $10 an hour. So some of these students are like, well, I can't use any of the free tutoring services that you have because the hours don't work or I can't get in. But then they'll contact someone else maybe who received a high grade in the class. And that's their choice, obviously, but they've asked us to help with that in the past, yeah.
So we're allowed to refer a student from a previous class?
If you want to refer a student to me, like say this
Oh.
person is like, you know, an excellent student, you may want to look at them if you need a tutor. That's helpful to us because then we know who you think would be good for tutoring.
Can you contact them and see if they're even interested? Right?
If we have lots of requests from students. Last year we had a lot of requests in biology.
Did you have someone then?
Yeah, there was 2, but then like there was 2 students on the side who I know were paying other students just completely on their own to get extra help.
Some people on campus do that as well. We obviously have more tutoring on campus because our population is a lot bigger. And in some instances, when we're working with students on the intake portion and they identify, excuse me, if they identify right away that they're gonna need a lot of help, we suggest that they come to campus because we just don't have all those services here off campus, but we do on campus. So sometimes they do come on campus and so we can help them more.
And I think like what we did last spring semester, giving you guys like different schedules, you know, like with the subjects and the names of the tutors and when they're available. And then I'll say, you know, other times as needed or as scheduled. By all means too, most of those tutors are really good about scheduling alternative times. So I know sometimes an instructor would come in and say, I have a student who just can never get in to be tutored. You know, they said it's free, but they're never available. Well, most of them are pretty good about scheduling different times. I mean, they'll meet here at 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night because there's classes already going on. So they usually are pretty good about scheduling around anybody else's schedules.
The last page just has our contact information for Elaine and me. So email anytime, call anytime. I have Elaine's extension on there for me because I'm often in appointments with students. So she'll screen that for me so I'm not interrupted. So that's all on that. I just want to run through the forms a little bit, just so you're, the first one is the excessive absence form. And so, you know what, this is the early student update form too. It's not just excessive absence. I'm not sure if that's the right form, but it's just like this. You put your comments down on the bottom, what's really wrong, if they've skipped how many times, and it's pretty self-explanatory. You've probably done this before. The other one is the drop and add form, and we have those here in the office, so if someone needs to drop the class or add the class, we'll just put it on this type of form, and then they'll mail it in to us, so you don't have to worry about that, just so you know what there is. One thing I did not touch upon is people auditing a class. And I know this year off campus, we had an individual who did not identify that they wanted to audit the class. And then at the end of the semester, they said, but I'm auditing this class. There is a form for that. There's a form for everything, but I don't know if any of you have ever had, that's, if someone's auditing a class, they come to the class, they do all the work, but they don't get graded. And that's it. They still pay, they still do everything else. So, but they also don't get credit. So if someone asks you to audit, they need to identify that when they register or first time in class, it's not for somebody who, geez, I really didn't do well in this class, I'm gonna audit it, and they try to tell us that in May. No, we don't, once they indicate if they're, regular student or auditing, we can't change it. We just can't. So this semester, someone way late in the semester said, but I was auditing this all along. So we pulled out their regular registration form and they didn't check the audit box. Or vice versa happens sometimes too. They just don't read it right and they check audit. And I said, but I wanted a grade. After the fact, we can't do anything about it.
Is there a way for them to see who is auditing or not? Like,
It's on the class list, it'll say AU.
It will say AU, okay.
And the last thing we don't use very often, but if you're going to change a grade, we need documentation of it. So say someone comes to you, if it's it was first semester, they come to you January 12th and said, my grade was wrong, and blah, blah, blah. And you check through your documentation and said, oh my gosh, it was an adding error. Stuff happens, that happens. But you can change it, but then please send us the form. You would be surprised, 10 years later, we get crazy questions and we go in the file, and if there's no form, we have absolutely no way of knowing what went on. So we need a paper trail for everything, also an auditor thing. So we form you to death, but it's all for a purpose. So any questions about any of this? And I know some of it was old news to you, but just trying to make sure everyone's on the same page. Okay.
The next part we have in here, and Miranda put this next part together, which is more on the logins and the paperwork that you get for ICS. She put together a presentation that actually is sort of self-directed, in terms of screenshots, etc. What my thinking is, in terms of time, is that if you have questions on the next series of slides which follow technical training, if you look at that, what will we cover? Network and my GCC logins, my GCC class lists, which Jeanne Graham talked a little bit about, entering grades. There's the emergency notification system, which is pretty self-explanatory. I know we had some issues with that last year, but I think those have been resolved. And then your GCC email account, which was also discussed a little bit. Nevertheless, those slides, and again, I'll have the presentation posted so you can actually see it in a larger scale, but if you want to, we can take a quick break, and if you want to just flip through those at your leisure, and at the end of the day, if you have particular questions, I can probably address those unless, but I think, I went through this again the other night, and I thought it was pretty self-explanatory.
One thing I'd like to add about that emergency notification system, if you get to class and it's, your students say, oh, it's supposed to blizzard tomorrow, how will we know? Tell them, please sign up for that emergency notification, then they don't have to listen to the radio, they don't have to watch TV, nothing.
The last slide before session 2.
And you as well,
Slide.
You sign up for it too, that way
How to do
you
that.
might get a call at,
I'm calling Stacy all the time, I think Hancock's out today. Are we
yeah,
at the
just,
school?
as soon as we know, like Stacy calls us and tells us Hancock is out today, and then we have a process we go through on campus, because no random people can notify the media, so we have a checklist of who calls who. And so it takes a little bit of time, I'd say 20 minutes to a half hour after Hancock might announce their closure. But then we put it on the emergency notification system, so if you're not even up yet, you'll get a text message or a phone call to your phone saying, oh, your community college classes are canceled today, or whatever. We also on campus use it in case of emergencies. If something crazy goes on and we have to evacuate the school, we text everybody. One time there was a crazy fire in a back room or something, and it wasn't a big deal at all, but we had to evacuate. So things like that, we use it for that too, which we would do up here as well. If something happened on this site in one of the rooms, we would send out that emergency notification. Much easier than getting up and waiting for it to come on the radio or whatever you do.
With Saturdays, that probably doesn't, is there
It can.
notification to the water run?
We can do that, you just, because you teach Saturdays. Yeah, just,
In the past, because there's no school on Saturdays, so it was just whatever instructor,
Yeah.
and myself to make the determination, and then
and then.
that's when it's kind of, and sometimes too, it's nice to have that class maybe your own class list, email listserv too,
Mhm.
and then phone numbers on hand.
Yeah, it's all on, it should all be on ICS.
And I think some of them don't take the time to do that emergency notification system, but I'll try stressing that more too when I come to those first class visits. Because it's listed, it was like number 7 or number 8 on that, little handout that we always go through to sign up for it. But maybe if we show them exactly how to do it and explain more reasons why.
Mhm. And just remind them, once winter's coming, like, you don't have to do anything, just sign up for this and it's done. And so students on campus who sign up really, really like it. I don't really you don't want to say that out loud. The trees were turning.
Yes.
Halfway up here, I'm like, are you kidding me? It can't be yet, it just can't be. Oh, yeah. That's my only comment on that.
Okay. So if you want to look at those, and if you have particular questions, I'm very familiar with all the login stuff, but unfortunately Miranda couldn't be here, but she did an excellent job in putting this together, so if you have questions, let me know.
Are we going to be talking about Blackboard at all?
I can. When we get to technology, I have some comments on Blackboard, but
Yeah.
I am very familiar with Blackboard.
The
so-
only issue I have is I like to use it for my grades instead of
Mhm.
a spreadsheet. But I always have to manually enter in every single one of my students because the IT won't do it automatically for me. And I never have their user IDs, so I have to search for them individually every single time.
They should do that. We should don't we? Well, see, the thing is that that's done for classes that are identified as online
Right,
classes.
and I'm not, but I'm just using it for the grades because it's a lot easier.
Have you talked to Barry?
But,
I've talked to him and he says that he can't do it, so I have to do it by hand every time. And then I keep...
there's a way to do that. I will
Yeah,
talk
that
to
doesn't
Larry
make
about
sense.
that. No.
Yeah, like I was wondering if it could just be done automatically for those who
Right.
want to use it, how hard is that?
It sure should be.
Yeah,
I don't
and then because I always have to then manually delete all of my students because I don't have a new course created every time. So I have to delete the previous semester's grades and students and basically re-add everything in. Because otherwise I have to email him and say, can you
It's
See, I
create
didn't know
another
that.
course?
The course, I know, or to add the course in, I know.
Yeah.
I better do that this week.
Yeah, it's a pain in the butt.
There's been umpteen times where I'm like, oh, my Blackboard account. I have to
Yeah.
add that course still. I have to go
See,
very-
on Monday, they are purging
Yeah.
last year's, so wait till Tuesday.
I couldn't get on in the summer, like in every.
We have had so many problems. We had a Gensbar upgrade, oh my goodness. It wasn't an upgrade, let me tell you, and it's just been a nightmare since then. And one day we'll be on, ICS has been down a lot. One day we'll be working away and then boom, it's gone for 2 days. It's just been a nightmare. So we're working with the vendor to try and fix it on the system, but hope next week is smooth.
And one thing with Barry, he's usually really quick at getting back. Especially if you just do email Barry at gogiveth.edu.
Mhm.
Notice if you are having a problem maybe with just your login part, like
Well, I
maybe
talked to
the
him before, I don't know,
password.
maybe it was a fluke or something happened, but I
Okay.
never heard back, so I just didn't have Blackboard this summer.
Okay.
But I did everything manually through the website. that
Okay.
we had, so it wasn't.
Yeah, I think we use Blackboard when I have it microphone.
Well, if things are like that and you're not getting answers or it's not getting fixed,
Okay.
Yeah,
or
let me
call
know,
somebody
yeah.
to fix it, we'll get it done. If it's humanly possible, we'll get it done for you, because you shouldn't be at a disadvantage for that.
So, well, thank you,
Okay,
Jean, and
sure.
thank you all. Why don't we take a 5-minute break, and I'll try to get this set up, and we'll kick back off at about 10 or so. So, thanks.
Call me anytime for anything that